In this video, we're going to talk about one thing that engaged couples forget to do, but it's also one of the most important things they can do for their marriage because it sets them up for the reality of what marriage actually looks like. And that is, does this couple have a process for how to repair whenever difficulties occur in their marriage? The reality of life, well, first, the reality is no one wants to talk about that. It's not really fun to talk about how are we going to deal with things when we're frustrated with each other, or you've hurt my feelings and I don't feel like you've heard me, or it doesn't seem like you respect all the things that I do for our marriage. Like, nobody wants to really talk about that, which is the first problem. Because if you don't talk about it, then that's telling me you don't actually have a process potentially for how to deal with that when it does happen. So yes, I know that this isn't really fun to think about or to talk about, but I'm about to tell you why it's so important to already be talking about how you plan on doing this as a couple. When you talk about that, it acknowledges how important your marriage actually is. What it communicates is, hey, I know we don't really want to talk about this, but also there's going to be times where we're probably going to unintentionally hurt each other, and I want us to talk through how we're going to repair that so we don't get stuck resenting or hurting one another when we know we both love and want the best for each other. When you have that conversation, it doesn't necessarily mean you're drudging up a bunch of stuff, but it's a way of preparing for the realities of being in a marriage. And one of the realities is there are going to be difficult things that occur. Some of the things are going to be outside of the marriage. Finances, work, your in-laws, when you have children, the dishes, and the day-to-day functioning of a house. Somebody's going to get sick. Things are gonna happen, and that's why it's important to already have a way to repair. So the process that I like to teach and that my wife and I like to live by is these things I call marriage builders. So first, you have revisiting conflicts. When you revisit conflicts, it's more of giving you an opportunity to fully repair and connect. If you and your spouse have an argument, but it doesn't get fully sorted out, it can leave people stuck with negative thoughts or beliefs about themselves that you don't want them to really have. So an example of something that you would want to revisit would be some type of frustration or difficulty that occurred and it never got fully resolved. So therefore, it's still stuck there, and it might have your wife thinking, he doesn't prioritize me, or it could have the husband thinking, she doesn't really care about all I do. She just wants my money, like hypothetically. Those are the kind of things that can happen. So first, you have to revisit things in order to fully deal with them together. Second is you want to express appreciation for each other. When you tell your spouse that you appreciate how much they love and care for you, or how much they value the marriage, or even, hey, I appreciate that you've taken the time to really listen to me. When you communicate that, it shows the other person that you really value them, and that some of the things they might be doing in the day-to-day that you actually notice how that's helpful and how it's a good for y'all's marriage. So both people need to hear and receive and share appreciation. The third thing is, which is one of the most challenging, is you got to validate each other's emotions. Validation doesn't mean total agreement with what the person is saying, but it means you're agreeing with the emotion that they're feeling. So if somebody says, I keep telling myself that you don't care about me, you might be tempted to say, well, that's not true. Like, I married you. Like, why do I have to keep telling you that? Like, I told you I loved you on my wedding day. Like, that already communicates that I love you and I care about you. And then they'll say, but it doesn't feel like it. When somebody does that and you start speaking to the facts of that's not true. I married you, so that means I care for you. What ends up unintentionally happening is you invalidate how that person feels. So when you validate someone's emotions, all you're really doing is just saying, that's understandable because something difficult happened and it was sending you the message that I didn't actually care about you. Like, I could see how that was upsetting. That doesn't mean you agree that it was upsetting. You're just acknowledging that, I could see how that was hurtful. So that more videos about that. I have one posted already that goes in more detail. Again, I'm just skimming the surface on this video. And so the next is you got, what did I say? You have revisiting, expressing appreciation, validate emotions, and then the next is clarifying misunderstandings. Pretty much every argument boils down to at least one misunderstanding that's taken place. So a keynote on clarifying is you want to wait to clarify till first you both feel understood. And then when you both feel understood, then it's a better time to clarify what you really meant. So let's say your wife's upset because you work late and you get defensive and say, well, no, I was just doing that because of what was going on this weekend. She's not going to feel like that's clarifying. She's going to feel like you're just making an excuse. So first, you want to validate, hey, honey, like, I could see how you were frustrated because you were looking forward to us being together tonight. And then she'll say, yeah, and all I wanted was spend some quality time together, and I just missed you. And then you could say, that makes sense because we've been really busy lately. You validate, and then when you clarify the misunderstanding, it doesn't come across like an excuse. So then you would clarify with something like, hey, the reason I was working late was because I wanted to get all that done so that I wouldn't have any distractions this weekend, because I was hoping that we could spend a bunch of time together then. When you clarify that, it then helps the other person fully see what you actually intended. Because if two people love each other, though we all make mistakes, the majority of the time, people are intending good for their spouse. I'm not saying there aren't times when people do bad things or hurt each other or intentionally do that, but the majority of the time, if you both love each other and want the best for your relationship, it's more likely than not your intention wasn't the problem. It was just how it got executed that kind of caused the disagreement. And then the fifth thing is repeating that process. Revisiting, expressing appreciation, validating the emotions, not the thoughts, and then clarifying. Throughout the lifespan of your relationship, you will be repeating this process over and over and over and over again. And that might not be encouraging to hear, but I hope it is encouraging because it fits with the reality of the world that we live in. We live in a very complicated world where difficult things happen, and it's part of getting married and ironing out what your process is to repair is preparing to live in that reality, but with the goal in mind. The goal to maintain your emotional connection, to be able to be in your 80s and still fully enjoy each other, to know that you've got a partner that wants the best for you. When you have those goals in mind and that's what you're going for, it's so important to have a clear process for how to get there when things happen in life that start to drift you away from what you both really want as a couple. Congrats on your engagement, and I do hope that this video is helpful, and let me know any questions that you have below in the comments. Thanks.